Poland finally fell completely at the start of October 1939. Very quickly thereafter, on October 13th, Stalin contacted the Finnish government and claimed that for the security needs of the Soviet Union, he demanded the so-called Karelian Isthmus, this area of Finland which was close to Leningrad or St. Petersburg today, and which has a big lake, several lakes actually, and rivers, but one of them is larger than the other, and an area which for the Soviet Union would be good to have as a defensive buffer zone in case there would be some form of invasion attempt against the Soviet Union and St. Petersburg. They also demanded a lease of a military base in the Hanko Bay, and also some border changes further up in Finland. At the absolute north, they promised that the Finns could be compensated with some Russian territory, but naturally those were wastelands where no economic activity was feasible, while those areas closer to St. Petersburg or Leningrad were both more populated but also had more industry and so on. The Finns, they entered into these negotiations, but they never really planned on giving the Soviets anything. They were just trying to buy some time, and in the end they clearly stated that all of these Soviet demands were absolutely not acceptable. And then on November 26th, the Russians, the Soviets, started shelling Mainila, a border city, but which the Soviets shelled themselves and then blamed it on the Finns. So a classic false flag event, something similar to the Gleiwitz incident.
Exactly.
Before the German invasion of Poland. And just 3 days later, they invaded Finland. The Finns, they put up a very stiff resistance. The Russians were also not really prepared for the invasion. They had also executed most of their competent and incompetent commanders during the Stalinist terror of 1937-38, meaning that the Red Army troops that entered Finland could be compared to some headless chickens running around. At the same time, the Finns were well prepared, and just as today, they had a very large army since everybody had gone through mandatory military service, and they had a large standing reserve that they had managed to mobilize because they knew for a couple of months that it was becoming increasingly likely that there would be a Soviet attack. And when initially the Soviets had hoped that this would be over within a few weeks, maybe similar to Vladimir Putin's hopes that he would be able to capture Kiev within 3 or 4 days. But once it turned out that Finland put up much tougher resistance than expected, the winter months arrived, December, January, and that winter was very, very cold. The Finns were much better prepared for that cold winter. They had excellent clothes preparing them for temperatures that were sometimes minus 30, 35, or even 40 below zero. They were also very well trained in ski warfare. The Soviets, they lacked both the warm clothes and
skis
and the skills, yes, to fight on skis. And the Finns also put up a very tactical resistance, in which they weren't trying to waste manpower fighting some offensives, that they were rather employing classical tactics of slowly withdrawing from some areas that they deemed to be less strategic, putting up much stiffer resistance than other, and also doing a lot of dispersal, regrouping in an area which the Red Army did not expect them to show up, block some roads, create some form of some ambushes, and also often isolate Russian troops from each other, making them to starve and freeze to death. So sometimes they wouldn't really have to kill them themselves. Nevertheless, in late January, especially early February, the Russians, they used their classical strategy of just throwing manpower at the problem, showing complete disregard for their own losses. And in the end, they managed to punch through the so-called Mannerheim line, the main Finnish defensive line. The Finnish government at that point realized that the situation was becoming increasingly difficult, and that it would be at least worth contacting the Soviets to see whether there could be some form of negotiations so that not all of Finland would be occupied and annexed. The Soviets were very embarrassed by their poor showing so far. They knew that they had made fools of themselves in front of the eyes of the world. They were also expelled from the League of Nations in December 1939, making their stand in the world worse off. Here we could also mention that today, naturally, Russia is still a full-on member of the United Nations and a permanent member of the National Security Council.
Yes.
So if we make comparisons to how the world reacted to a war of aggression in 1939 and 2022, there are some differences.
Adam, the clock in the corner of the studio is blinking at us, so I'm afraid we have to bring that episode to a close, but fear not, we'll pick up the story next time. There we are. As usual, we've been defeated by the clock, but fear not, if you join us next time, as we hope you will, we will continue the story here on Poland Daily History. In the meantime, thank you for watching.